Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Postgraduate Academy Support Group meeting. This forms part of our session on drivers to thriving in the postgrad journey. And today we have a very exciting, very important session hosted by our Student Support Services team, featuring our special guest today, Ravindri Govender from SADAG. And today is all about our mental health first aid kit. And you'll hear loads about this in the next 45 minutes or so within this session. As a reminder, or for any newcomers to our community, these are very informal sessions. We really encourage interaction. You're welcome to put your questions or comments or feelings or whatever you'd like to share within our chat box. Raise your hands if you'd like to voice your opinions or comments or any thoughts. And if you'd prefer to remain anonymous, you're more than welcome to send a private message to our SSS team. That's Wooly and Sue and myself. And we would gladly read your comments within the session for all our community members to share. And with that very brief introduction, I'll hand over to our SSS team to take away our session. Sorry, to continue our session. Excuse me. Go ahead, Sue. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Lenine, and students and colleagues. It's absolutely amazing spending some time with you. I have the pleasure of introducing Ravindri Govender, who is an educational psychologist and currently works as a project manager for KZN Mental Health Advocacy Group and SADAG KZN. Ravindri also serves as the secretary of the SISA, Society for Educational Psychology of South Africa's Executive Committee, and she has previously worked as a behavioral therapist at the Star Academy and Dynamite Minds. So in addition to her passion for mental health advocacy, Ravindri is also an advocate of youth empowerment and is the co-founder of her own nonprofit company called Project Potential South Africa. Over the years, she has had the opportunity to work with people from various backgrounds, and this has fueled her passion to work towards advocating for the well-being of people with mental disabilities, especially children. Ravindri is passionate about working with the community and therefore hopes that one day she too can be a part of moving psychology from the couch to the community. So over to you, Ravindri. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm super excited to host you today.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that lovely welcome. And while I just share my screen with everybody, thank you very much to the Student Support Services for hosting us as SADAG KZN and the KZN Mental Health Advocacy Group. As we are getting through the mental health series put together by Student Support Services, I was thinking about what title can I use for a very much needed topic. And so a quote that stuck with me throughout this presentation was, "An empty lantern provides no light." So I thought, I'm not going to give my presentation a title and keep it formal. I'm going to start off with a quote, and that is how I hope our session today would unfold. I would hope that we would be very informal, very engaging. If you have any questions, like the facilitator had said, feel free to stop me throughout the presentation. Okay. Mental health is something that most people shy away from, and we are lucky that times are starting to change and the stigma is starting to be broken and the narrative is changing, but it's something that's happening very, very slowly. And an important part of mental health and taking care of your mental health is self-care. So starting off with, an empty lantern provides no light. My name is Ravindri Govender, and I'm a project manager for the KZN Mental Health Advocacy Group and SADAG KZN. Starting off, I'd like to pose a question to you. Kindly let me know if you are able to see my slides moving, because it is frozen on my end.
Okay, so it hasn't moved, Ravindri.
Okay, I'm just going to try again. There we go. Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes.
So my first question to you as the audience, and feel free to type it in the chat or shout out answers if you need. How is your week going, or how has this past week or two been for you? Any takers? Are you feeling calm? Is the weather making an impact in your mood? I mean, we had a really hot, beautiful day yesterday, and it's suddenly now gloomy and cloudy. I see some people saying it's super hectic. Some participants saying that it's been really stressful. Definitely too early to tell as yet. And these are all normal reactions. It's normal to feel stressed. It's normal to feel anxious and overwhelmed. And we are at the part of the year when year-end fatigue is, fast approaching us. Most people are trying to get all their affairs in order so that they can enjoy their festive season. But along with that comes a lot of pressure. And sometimes we also end up reaching burnout at this point of the year. So while your feelings are validated, how we handle these pressures of life are what matter. So my next question to you would be, how many of you have done something for yourself in the past 2 months? I see another participant said that their week is going by way too slowly. Definitely agree with you on that one. Or how many of you have even considered doing something for yourself, but maybe didn't get around to didn't get around to engaging in that activity rather? Nice. I see an individual said that she ran today and finally found some time to do so. That's great. It's nice to see that you actually are starting to make yourself a priority and put yourself first in these busy days. Hey, if there are any other responses, feel free to type them in the chat. Nice. Another individual said they went to a concert, and I think that is a really good way of actually relieving that stress and spending time with family and reconnecting. So these are ways that we can engage in self-care activities without it actually being another thing that we have to add into our routine. So the idea for our talk, and something I'd like for you to bear in mind as we go through this presentation, is how can I incorporate the idea of self-care into my daily routine? We don't want it to be another tick box in your schedule. We don't want it to be something that you dread, but instead something that is small, cost effective, and will actually start to enhance your mental health and your headspace as the days and weeks go by. Okay. Esteemed Professor Suvira Ramlal once said, "Don't curse the darkness, instead light a candle." And I thought that was very, very appropriate, given that we always are looking at everything that is going wrong, and we constantly focus on the negative, and seldom do we realize what an impact that has on our mental health. And I think a shift in mindset, a small shift in a mindset, we don't expect to change our thought processes overnight, can actually begin to help the way we view ourselves and those around us. Okay, so today's workshop and presentation is all about finding ways to nurture that candle so that it doesn't burn out. So I would like to start off by looking at our good stresses and our bad stresses. Those of you that said you were feeling stressed out, or were feeling a bit anxious, how would you rate this level of stress? Would you think that it was something that you could manage? Are you feeling extremely burnt out? Would it be a high level of stress? Where would you see yourself in this on this curve? Too much stress. Okay, so I'm assuming definitely on towards the red end of the curve. Exhaustion also bordering between yellow and red. Fatigue also definitely, sorry, I'm just trying to move the chat box. Definitely at the peak of the curve. Definitely a yellow, so bordering on exhaustion, could be work overload, other family pressures, peer pressure, those sort of things as well. So how do you know that you are stressed? What are your telltales? Are you maybe feeling hyperactive, agitated? Do you feel like you're functioning on a go slow? I know for myself, when I feel stressed, I go into overdrive and want to control everything, starting to feel irritable as well. So these are things that we need to bear in mind if we want to engage in positive self-care, because we need to firstly begin to be able to identify when our mental health is taking a toll and when we're starting to feel stressed, overwhelmed, anxious. And this is the only way we can begin to address these telltales, okay? So identifying these telltales helps us create a buffer when this calamity strikes. So how would you describe your stress? Is it a good stress or a bad stress? As we all know, some stress is good. It motivates us to do something. It encourages us to push ourselves beyond our boundaries. But it's important that we make a link between the event and experience and our level of stress. Engaging in an event or an experience that pushes us towards the exhaustion or burnout / breakdown end of the stress curve is not necessarily a good thing. And it means that we need to find a way to balance out that stress so that, yes, we are pushing ourselves and motivating ourselves to do well, but we're also being kind to ourselves and encouraging ourselves to reward the small milestones that we achieve in the process of trying to achieve this bigger task that you may be engaging in. So my last question is, what can you do in the moment as a stress reliever? So when you find that you're extremely stressed and you're exhausted, what's your initial go-to as a stress reliever? Walk with a friend, relax and refocus. Nice, loving these responses. And these are all things that we can actually use to build ourselves a mental health toolkit or self-care kit. Walk away from the screen, go get back to nature in the garden, ventilate. Great, loving these ideas. And I'd like for you to bear your self-care ideas in mind as we move throughout the presentation so that we can collectively build a mental health toolkit that you can actively use when we're done with this. Okay, so just a brief overview of what is mental health exactly. And so our mental health is impacted by things such as stress, our levels of stress, diet, our sleep routine, and every other factor that is going on around us. But it's also impacted by our thought processes and things that make us anxious or concern us as well. And it's important to understand that these things are normal. And it's okay to not feel okay. It's important that you realize that you are not alone. There is help available on various different platforms. And towards the end, I'll share some resources and where help is available. But it's important to realize that you don't suffer in silence. Yes, mental health is a very stigmatized topic, but by speaking out and seeking help, you are becoming an advocate for yourself. And at the end of the day, if each person can become an advocate for themselves, we slowly start to destigmatize the topic of mental health in our country. Okay. So going back to self-care, I'd like to look at mental health hygiene. Mental health hygiene is what we call a good state of mental health, which is key to being present, staying connected, and feeling a sense of meaning in our lives. It's important that we have meaning in things that we do, so that we don't feel the sense of emptiness in our lives. It includes feeling in control, but it also includes letting go of control. So how can you practice mental health hygiene or positive mental health? It's all about developing good coping strategies that are key to engaging in and practicing good mental health. So looking at the next few slides in our presentation, we're going to be looking at how can we engage in self-care, as well as what tools can we put into this mental health toolkit that we can access throughout our day or throughout our week. Okay. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about self-care. So going off back to how often do you put yourself? And I noticed a lot of people, a couple of individuals said that, yes, they went out today, but I also noticed that some people in the responses said they need to do it some more, which means that, yes, it's really good. And I'm really glad to hear that a lot of people are making the time for themselves, especially in our busy schedules, and also acknowledging the fact that we need to do it more. Self-care is not something that needs to be time consuming. It's something that you can do for 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of your day, at the end of your day. It doesn't have to be very, very cost effective. And it's also a cost induced rather. And it's also important that we understand the difference between self-care and self-indulgence. Okay. Often we get so caught up in trying to make sure that everybody around us is sorted and taken care of. But who takes care of you? Do you make sure that you are sorted and taken care of? So that's my question to you. How often have you stopped to be like, am I okay? When last have you asked yourself the question, are you okay? How are you going to help yourself? While self-care can help prevent future problems, we must also understand that it's not a cure for treatment of a mental health difficulty. Rather, it's something that aids or supports the treatment of mental health difficulty. So my plea here is don't ignore your mental health challenges and say that I'm engaging in self-care. I don't need professional help. Professional help is available to you via the student support services. So it's important that we understand that self-care supplements the professional help that you get. And the nice thing about student support services is that is your time. It's your 1 hour, your half an hour. You are the focus of that session. It's not a group session as I'd understood it from the facilitators. So I think by making an appointment with student support services or engaging in other professional helplines, that is the first step of you engaging in self-care by realizing that you're not feeling okay, and you are doing something to actively help yourself in that situation. So my not last question, I keep saying last, but there's many that keep popping up. But I'd like to ask, how many of you have a self-care routine that you actively engage in? Find myself managing to do it well on weekends, but not daily. Elliot, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, I always do some exercises every morning before I have a shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does that feel?
No, I feel good and fresh and energetic. You know,
Yes.
sometimes I go to have I go to have a bath when I really feel that I'm down. I'm feeling really like tired. But after doing some exercises, I become, a little bit energetic and fresh. Even my mind becomes, and especially after having the bath, I really feel good about myself. But I always make sure that I do some exercises, few exercises, not too strenuous exercises.
Definitely. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And it's good that you mentioned exercises, because exercise is such a natural form of self-care in the sense that when we engage in physical exercise, our body releases specific endorphins that help regulate our system, which helps things such as decreasing our stress levels, regulating our levels of anxiety in our body. So, well done and congratulations for putting yourself first and taking time out of your day in the mornings to engage in this exercise routine. Just seeing some of the comments that go in the chat. Some individuals engaging on weekends, others wanting to start but having a very hectic schedule. I hear you, trying to engage on in a routine, but not regularly. Others saying, I know what I need to do, but just can't get to everything. And that's normal. It's not, it's not an abnormal response. There's so much that we've got going on in our lives. Some of us are parents, or we've got older parents that we've got to take care of, or kids, so it's difficult to put yourself first every single day. But I mean, if we can try to take 5 to 10 minutes out of our day twice a week, maybe, and put ourselves first and engage in something like light exercises, or going for a walk, or walking in the garden, or some breathing exercises. These are things that we can begin to build into our routine. But engaging or putting together a self-care routine doesn't have to be a mammoth task. Start small and build onto it. Start with something that you find comfortable. Yes, there are many mental health care and self-care activities that are often floating around in social media or in academic articles, but it's important you find something that you're comfortable doing. The moment you start to feel uncomfortable and you're no longer enjoying this exercise, it's no longer a form of self-care. It starts to feel, and what I say in inverted commas, a form of punishment. Okay, because your body is then not relaxing. You're forcing yourself to do this, and eventually you start to dread this activity that you engage in. So the moment that sense of that feeling comes along, it's time to stop that activity, reflect on what had happened, and reevaluate and say, maybe I need to take a day's break, or maybe I need to try something new altogether. And no longer enjoying an activity is normal. We all go through different phases of life, and we're not all going to enjoy a specific activity throughout our entire lifespan. Our interests and our hobbies change and develop as we evolve as well. So it's okay for our self-care routine to change and develop through these, as we go through these different phases of life as well. Okay. One other important aspect of self-care includes educating yourself. Educating yourself on firstly your telltales of what makes you stressed, what causes a decline in your mental health, so that you first become your own advocate and become aware of when you're not coping. And then secondly, educating yourself on how you can go about to identify the situations that are causing these telltales to be on the increase. And then lastly, educating yourself on how you can go about managing these telltale signs. Okay. So there's 3 different types of self-care. When we think about self-care, we just think about, putting ourselves first, but how do we put ourselves first? So we look at emotional self-care. So these could be like self-talks, giving yourself a little pep talk when you're feeling down and out. Maybe a weekly coffee catch-up with friends, or a monthly coffee catch-up. And then another important part of emotional self-care is saying no. We don't have to take every single opportunity that comes our way. Yes, some of them may be brilliant, but it's also okay to say no, to say, I'm tired, I'm going to pass this opportunity up. We don't have to do every single favor that a friend or family member or a colleague asks of us. We are allowed to say no, and that doesn't make you a bad person. Okay, then we look at physical self-care. So that's like, as Elliot had mentioned, his little exercise routine. Another important part of physical self-care is our sleep routine, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And then lastly, we look at spiritual self-care. So that includes things like meditation, journaling, as well as little random acts of kindness. Yes, some people generally tend to relax when they go out and volunteer, or just interact with different people who don't know them from any other walk of life. And that just allows them to be free and be themselves as well. So what doesn't count as self-care? These are things that we need to look at whether are they health enhancing versus self-indulgence. Something that's going to cost you money that you don't necessarily have. So for example, going to the spa every single week when you know that you cannot afford that is not a form of self-care. Yes, you'll feel good for that hour, but you're going to spend the next week stressing about how you're going to get the funds to support this form of self-care. These are things that don't necessarily fall as self-care. So moving on from self-care, we look at how can we build ourselves a mental health toolkit. So I'm going to provide you with 8 different techniques rather, or activities that we can compile into a mental health toolkit, and bearing in mind that you don't necessarily have to engage in every single activity. It's about maybe engaging in 1 or 2 activities, or just even one for yourself. And as we go through this, I'd like for you to also share either in the chat or by unmuting yourself, what other mental health care activities you feel would benefit you. Because remember, something that may benefit you and may not necessarily be on my list may benefit another member in this community as well. Okay, so some of the elements of the mental health toolkit are firstly breathing. Things like your box breathing, and if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of box breathing, you can always consult student services and they'd be able to help you with things like this. Breathing is a very, very simple task. It's something that you can do throughout your day when you start to feel stressed or overwhelmed. It's something that happens very naturally. So it's your body's natural response to calming down as well. And it's the way you control your breathing. Also, when you breathe, when you engage in deep breathing, notice how your body changes, how you start to relax. Think about the rate and depth of your breath as well. And how do your emotions complement your breath? Then we move on to things such as visualization. And I know when you say visualization, it's a very out there, artsy concept, but I mean, it doesn't have to be difficult. It could be thinking about a place that calms you down, or a person that calms you down. And if you try to picture that in your mind's eye, it's something that helps you calm down and regulate yourself wherever you may be. Okay. Daily exercise, we didn't touch on that. So things like just going for a brisk walk. It doesn't have to be long. It could be in your garden. If possible, do it barefoot, because being barefoot out in the grass is another form of self-care, because you indirectly engage in a technique called grounding and mindfulness. Journaling, for those that like to write and don't really like to express themselves verbally. Put all your thoughts down on a page. It's not going to hurt anybody. If you're having a bad day and you don't want somebody to know, put it down into a book. It's better than walking on eggshells and feeling as if you're scared to express yourself because somebody is going to get offended by that. Okay. Other mental health self-care topics. Engaging in a good sleep routine. So how many individuals engage in either a good sleep routine or engage in good sleep hygiene? Okay, so a good sleep routine doesn't necessarily mean you have to sleep. This says sleep is important to me, so definitely. Well, great job. So a sleep routine doesn't mean you need to now sleep at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and you have to have the full 7-8 hours of sleep every single night. I do understand, we've got busy lives and there's deadlines to meet and those sort of things, but trying to sleep consistently for throughout the week or throughout your life helps you engage in a good sleep routine. And this starts off by developing a pre-sleep routine schedule, or pre-sleep routine rather. So for example, say you go to bed at 10 o'clock every day. So by 9 o'clock, you begin engaging in your pre-sleep routine rather. And this includes things such as shutting down your laptop, packing away whatever you need to, making your bed, getting ready for bed, maybe speaking to a spouse or a family member for a little bit, unwinding from your day. That is your body's way of understanding, okay, he or she is starting to slow down. My brain also needs to slow down, and I'm now getting ready for bed and getting ready to sleep. Other things to include in your sleep hygiene would then be, firstly, avoid caffeine after 1 p.m. I know it's one of those things where like, I'm tired, I need a cup of coffee, I just need to get this going. But caffeine stays in our bodies and in our systems for a very, very long period of time. So by cutting off caffeine at 1 o'clock, we're not on this on-the-go movement at 10 o'clock at night, and it helps ourselves regulate ourselves. I see there's a question, what's the difference between sleep routine and sleep hygiene? So a sleep routine is a routine that we engage in on a daily basis in order to have a good night's sleep that is restful, and we wake up feeling refreshed and revitalized in the morning. And it starts off with our 1 hour pre-sleep routine where we're getting ready for bed, and then we sleep consistently at say 9 or 10 at night, and then we wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning. I'm just ballparking times here. And that is our routine. Our body then becomes trained over time to know this is the period that I need to calm down, shut down, and relax. Where sleep hygiene is the activities or things that we engage in to ensure that we have a good sleep. So things such as avoiding caffeine, then creating a sleep-inducing environment, such as it should ideally be a dark room, someplace that's quiet, well ventilated, so that we're not disrupted, and we're not disturbed throughout the night, and we actually have a good restful night's sleep. And then it also helps, and things practicing good sleep hygiene activities helps regulate our internal clock. In order to measure how well you're sleeping or determine whether you're having good sleep, I encourage keeping a sleep diary. So it doesn't have to be a physical diary, just on your phone, noting down the time you sleep, the time you wake up. How do you feel? Do you feel refreshed? Did you feel like you had a restless night's sleep? Were you tossing and turning? Did you sleep peacefully? And then look back on that and think, did I have a really busy day? Was I able to unwind and sleep effectively, or was this the reason why I had a very disruptive night's sleep? Looking back on all of these activities will help us put in coping mechanisms throughout a day to ensure that we are able to sleep properly throughout the night. Okay. I hope that answers your question, but if not, I can also provide you with some resources in terms of sleep hygiene as well. Okay, then as part of our mental health toolkit, I've got your recharge. So this can be as simple as going out into nature or going out of your workspace, rather. Go away from your laptop screen. And I know one of the participants mentioned that earlier, just walking away from your desktop screen. There is the whole movement towards becoming aware of the blue light, or the blue screen rather, and the effect that has on our eyesight. But we also need to understand the effect that it has on our mental health. And walking away from a screen, whether it be your laptop screen or your phone screen, can be very, very calming for you, because looking at a laptop screen or a phone screen can provide you with a sensory overload. And therefore, we need to regulate ourselves and engage in sensory regulation activities. So something that you can engage in or include in your sleep routine is, or your pre-sleep routine is, an hour before, switch off your phone. Don't engage in on social media and that sort of thing. It helps us to regulate ourselves from a sensory perspective, okay? And then create a daily activity schedule that you can include in your current schedule. So perhaps for an hour before dinner or while you're engaging with your family, you want to take a digital detox. That will help you also calm down, because there's so much that's going on social media and in our lives. Sometimes we just need time away from all of that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And the aim of a mental health toolkit is to nourish not just your body, but your mind, body, and soul, so that we become holistic individuals. And I do understand that, you know, all of this sounds really good, but we all live very busy lives. But if you can engage in one self-care activity and start to build on that in terms of time, you'll start to see the difference in the way you regulate yourselves, as well as your emotions and the way you're feeling as time goes by. Okay. So we've looked at how we can put ourselves first, but I do understand that we have families that also need our help. So I'm just going to touch on mental health first aid, and it is a framework on how we can respond in a natural, supportive, and practical manner if somebody around us is in emotional distress. So it's a very simple framework. It's called the look, listen, and link. If you find that you are in a situation where somebody is maybe experiencing having a panic attack, or they're not in the best mental health headspaces, it might be best to engage in some mental health first aid. And it's a very simple process. Basically, look around you. Look if the individual is in a dangerous place and how can you get them away from there. Look to see if there are any injuries, if you may need to call for emergency services, and look to see which other individuals around you can help you. Then listen attentively to what the individual is saying and listen non-judgmentally. Most often when individuals and ourselves, when we are feeling down or we're going through a mental health crisis, we just want somebody to listen to us without them judging us. And then secondly, link them to professional services such as SADC or student support services, and understand your limitations. So before you begin to help another individual engage in mental health first aid, it's necessary to ensure that you've helped yourself. Then while you are engaging with the individual, know your limitations. If you are not a trained professional, don't offer them unsolicited advice. Rather, be honest and say to them, I'm not a professional, but I can help you link up with a professional. And then lastly, it's important to realize when you're helping other individuals, we're often running on adrenaline. So this can be very, this can have an impact on you. So take some time out to reflect on how this incident or the last couple of days may have had you feeling. How did this impact your state of mental health? How can you return to your homeostasis? And how can you now use what you've learned from the situation to help yourself, your family, and those around you? Okay. And then lastly, like I said, help is always available. Starting off with student support services, you've got counseling services that are available to you, and I encourage you to make use of this opportunity by booking an appointment via the contact details below. These are confidential sessions by a trained professional who are there to support you and help you and have your best interest and heart, and nobody actually is going to know whether you make an appointment or not. If you are scared of the fact that somebody is going to judge you, these are confidential sessions. Nobody is going to know. So if you'd like to access these services after hours, or if you would like to engage in other mental health care services, SADC is available on their toll-free national helplines, and you'd be able to speak to a trained counselor or perhaps join a support group. SADC has support groups either online or in person, and they can be general support groups specific to your needs, and the call center agents will definitely help you in getting in touch with these support groups where you can relate to other individuals who may be experiencing similar difficulties than you. Sometimes it just helps to speak to somebody who may understand you and may have gone through the similar experiences as you have. And with that, I say thank you for your time and thank you for listening. I hope I didn't go over time, but if there's any questions or if there's anything unclear, I'm always happy to go back to anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devendri. I was telling you before the amount of notes that I take during these sessions, and I love the content. It's so very relevant. And I've got a mountain of questions. Is it okay if I kicked off?
No, just before you start, I will make my slides available for dissemination to your community as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I especially love the reminder about sleep. We keep forgetting how important sleep is. You try and minimize the amount of time that you're closing your eyes because you have so much that you need to get done during the day, and you don't realize just how much that rest and a good sleep hygiene, a good sleep routine can do for you. So I had a conversation with someone recently, and we were discussing how much one's environment can contribute to one's mental health. And I mean, based on your experience, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who manages to walk into a toxic environment or an environment in which they're not very comfortable with, but they need to because of whether it be academia, your degree, or your friendship circle, or but it's something that is a part of your daily life. And it is a stimulus that you need to learn how to deal with. But it's a struggle. How would you suggest managing with this? In anything addition to the key points that you've raised over here?
Definitely. I think the first thing that comes to mind is find the balance to that. You're going into this very, very uncomfortable environment, and it's something that you have to do. So you've mentioned that the individual, whoever has no choice, they've got to do it. So now let's find something that you really enjoy, and it's an environment you really want to go to. So that would be going home and walking your dog for an hour or half an hour. I could be exaggerating the times. But find the counter to that so that it doesn't become this negative thing that you constantly you're not looking forward to. You also need to find something that you look forward to as well. At the end of the day, it's like, oh, I have to go into work, or I have to go wherever and do this. But at the end of the day, like, yes, I'm going home to go for a walk. I'm going home to the beach, or I'm going home to walk my dog and play with my dog, And those are the ones we need to have a balance in life, is what I'm trying to say. But then also let's help the individual look at how can we make this environment more suited to my needs, or more friendly, more me friendly rather. What can I do to make this space more comfortable for myself? Do I want to engage with the colleagues there a little bit more, get to know them a little bit? Who knows, you might find you have similar interests, or you guys engage in a similar hobby or some sort of team building, and you find you've got similar strengths. That is something that you can use to build these collegial relationships, because if you're spending so much of your day with these individuals, you might as well create a support system for yourself in that environment as well. And then other things such as, we live in a day and age where technology and music and things like that are so readily available. If you like, calming music, those things are freely available on YouTube. We've got, most people these days work with earpods, when it's applicable. So it's something that you can just put on while you're working at your laptop, and you'll notice over an hour that starts to calm you down, and you don't feel that level of anger and frustration and irritability and dread of that work. So let's try and bring in things that calm you down. Other things such as little aromatherapy oils that you can keep at your desk that have nice scents. So that helps regulate you throughout the day, so that it doesn't become this uncomfortable, unpleasant situation every single day.
Oh, thank you. I wish I had you in my pocket when we had that discussion. Shall I open the floor to any of our community members? If there are any questions that you'd like to ask within the group, by all means, or SSS team, are there any specific questions that you would like to raise within this session, or based on your experiences with students coming in at this time of the year, and all the stresses that we have, or any additional advice that you may have?
So as we're speaking, I'm thinking, we may have a plan, and sometimes we derail. And it's in those times that we have to remain kind to ourselves, to say, you know what, it's not working, let's adjust, let's reset, let's kind of start again. I know a lot of the time we can be hard on ourselves when we're not going for that walk, or we're not eating healthy, and it can definitely influence our mood, our mental state, in many ways. And the other thought I had was, and I've said this before, practice while it's gone, so that when it's really difficult, gets a little easier to get to those things to do. I don't know if anyone wants to reflect on those words. Yes, Elliot.
Thank you very much. In fact, I'm planning to arrange an appointment to meet with one of the SSS team. But my challenge, I'm staying in Pietermaritzburg. What I would like to find out is that is it still ethical is it possible to be referred by a counselor from Devon to someone to a counselor who is in Pietermaritzburg?
So there's just one question I'm thinking about. When you say ethical, are you saying that you're currently seeing someone and you want to see someone closer to home and you don't know if that would breach boundaries, or you're just looking for a referral for someone?
In fact, I have already started making an appointment.
And that's perfect.
It's just I've just started to talk with the counselor that I will need an appointment. But if the counselor is staying in Durban and I'm staying in Pietermaritzburg, so is it advisable to ask the counselor if it would be possible for him or her to refer me to someone who is closer to me in Maritzburg?
Perfect. And I completely agree with Willie with the thumbs up, and we can definitely do the cross referral. And I think that's something that, just to bring it back to the topic of the day, self-care starts with knowing what it is that you need, and accessing support services, whether it is to unpack just your own personal professional development, or to address challenging things. And I like what you're saying. You know what it is that you need. It is important that we ask for that referral. I know Willie wants to add something, so I'll just add on to what she's saying. Go for it, Willie.
No, I just want to reassure Elliot that it's perfectly in order. Even if he has consulted with a counselor in Durban, and right now it's going to serve his greater good to actually sit with somebody and speak with somebody. He's identified that that's what he needs, and that's very valuable. So I would say we will certainly support you in whichever way we can, Elliot, so that you could have that contact, because that's what I hear you saying you want. And because if you have to see us, it would be a virtual session. And so, yeah, we can certainly support you in that.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. So we do have student counsellors based out in DCTP as well as the greater Durban area. PMB is one of the sites that we do have a student counsellor based there. We have our intern industrial psychologist who is currently based there, that is consulting in person as well as online. And we do have other support services available out there. In Pangeni, Newcastle, Port Shepstone, so that's our greater areas. Absolutely.
I know we have another question in the chat box, but before we go there, I'm just going to take this opportunity to share an evaluation link within our chat box. It was included in the invitation to this session. This is a wonderful way to get your additional opinions about the content that we've had for 2023 to mold what could be further included in 2024 as well. Any changes or comments that you'd like for us to consider as we draft our next generation of Postgraduate Academy seminars. Right, so that's in the chat box. And one of our questions in the chat box was from one of our participants here. What are your thoughts on persons whose sleep pattern is biphasic. So this adds on to our discussion about our sleep routines and our sleep hygienes.
Okay. Thank you for that question. And I'm going to assume this when you say that it's the individual who ensures to take a nap during the day and still has a relatively good night's sleep. Naps are good, but it does not replace a good night's rest. Generally, we take a nap in the afternoon during the day and while it's still daytime. And we also need to understand our REM cycle work when we're in deep sleep is generally when we're in a dark, quiet environment. When we're taking a nap during the day, there's still everything going on around us. You can still hear sounds, you might hear the traffic, there's still daylight, it's still very bright. So your brain is not getting that ability to shut down. So I would say don't use a nap to replace your good night's sleep. I hope that answers your question.
I like what you're saying, Ravindri, and I always say you got to learn the power of a nap, and I think learn the power of with the art of taking a nap, because there is power in a nap. And some people say, no, I'm napping for an hour, and I'm thinking, well, you're bordering on starting to sleep. So it's kind of like napping can be regarded as anything between 20 25, 30 minutes. So it is something that's worth exploring. And there are many benefits and gains with taking naps.
I'd love to explore this more because I feel like I'm not doing it right, clearly. But you hear people say power napping. That was a thing for me during my postgrad, where you're cramming to get this thing done. There's a deadline, but you need to sleep. And yes, I know it's very unhealthy. But there were people who swore by having 20-minute nap, but a good one, not the way you do it. So what does that even mean? Is there such a thing as a good nap? I know you mentioned it now, so I need to learn here, bearing in mind that it doesn't replace a good night's routine. What is the right way to nap so that you can get some good productivity in there, better productivity?
Absolutely. It's good questions to ask, and yeah.
I'm just looking. I think we've lost Ravindri.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, we
just
can
got
continue our sleep discussion another time offline, maybe. And I'll get the secrets to a good nap. But I mean, we're nearing the end of the session as well, and it's been a very productive session within this block on drivers to thriving in the postgraduate journey. And I understand we have another session within this block next week, discussing the main content is sports science, being mentally ready to be physically healthy. Oh, that sounds fantastic. I love it. So we'll thank you very much to all the participants within today's community discussions, and to our presenter, Ravindri Govender from SADC, and our SSS team. Thank you so much for your input and your content today. It's just been such a learning experience. Thank you very much. I see Ravindri is busy reconnecting. So I'll wait for her to join so I can say goodbye. But in the meantime, I see Ravindri, welcome back. We were just saying thank you so much for your participation within the session. Your content, your information was really, really informative. Thank you very much for being here with us today and sharing your knowledge, and for being open to continue discussions. Thank you very much for the contact details as well. We really appreciate your presence within the session. And Thank you again to the SSS team, and thank you again to all our participants. And we look forward to seeing you next week when we discuss how to be mentally ready to be physically healthy. Looking forward to that. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks.